Hey guys, what's going on? Coach Adam Menner here from Varsity Gym with our female athlete Shannon here. So today what we're going to go over is I just want to show you a specific warm-up protocol and how you can sequence your warm-ups, which are super important. A lot of times I see either too much ground-based activity, either too many drills that are not applicable, or the sequencing of your training is a little off in the sense of you're doing things that are higher intensity in terms of warming up the tissue, warming up the nervous system to be able to handle the higher velocities and forces of sprinting. So in this video, we're just going to demonstrate how we take an athlete from beginning all the way to when they're about ready to sprint. And so we're going to show you that step by step. The first section of any good warm-up before a sprinting session, encompasses making sure that the body is primed to sprint. Remember, no sprinter is going to sprint the same. However, there are certain positions that you can put an athlete in that are more advantageous, that are going to allow them to sprint better. And so a lot of those principles also talk about aligning the rib cage with our pelvis, ensuring that we have triplanar movement of the lower extremities, ensuring that our tissue is ready to go. In the sense of, I'm not going to have them experience high forces quickly, I'm going to slowly acclimate them, and we're going to talk about that in our dynamic prep series. But for here, this is a lot of ground-based work that we do that doesn't require you lying on the ground, foam rolling V-sits or what have you. This is actually truly putting the body in the right positions to sprint so the athlete feels comfortable, but also the body is working in unison with each other. So we're going to grab this kettlebell here. The first thing that you're going to do is called a standing hook plank. So Shannon's going to bring her feet inside her frame. She's going to hold the kettlebell by the ears with her elbows out in front of her. So she's going to bring her elbows out, and now in her mind, she's going to exhale all of her air to pull her ribs down, and she's going to scoop her hip up underneath her. And now she should be able to wiggle her toes, pushing her heels in the ground. And this is what's called a stack. This is a classic PRI principle, but also this is for respiration purposes and alignment of the upper and lower extremities. So she's going to take 3 deep breaths here. So we just call this a standing hook plank. From her head down to her heels, kind of form a hook, because again, we're stacking our ribs on top of our pelvis. Once she takes 3 deep breaths, the second drill that we're going to perform is what's called a 2-point kettlebell RDL or a Campo RDL. So she's going to take the kettlebell in her left hand and her right foot comes forward. But we want to make sure that there's about 6 inches apart between the right heel and the left toe. And now here's what she's thinking in her mind. She's tucking her chin to protect her neck. She's shifting all of her weight back over this stance leg, her left leg. So she's going to feel it in the right hamstring, but what we're actually trying to do is we're trying to get back into her right hip. So we're trying to restore some of her gait mechanics here and ensure that she's not too far into our late stance push-off, which is her big toe, which activates a lot of the anterior part of her body. So I'm trying to pull her back into an earlier phase of gait that's going to allow us to have a place to go when we sprint. So she's going to get 5 each side here. Good, and then back to center. So you can tell this is ipsilateral, this is intentional. Right, this is how the body works when sprinting. While one side is off, the other is on. That's inhibition. So she's bracing her oblique. She's shifting back into this left hip as she's pushing into the heel. And then she'll switch sides. So same thing. She's going to exhale all of her air on the way down to get some lengthening of the hamstring, get some posterior shift, and then she's going to inhale as she resets for her next rep. The next exercise is just a side lunge. So now she's going to separate her feet about shoulders width, a little outside shoulders width apart. And now she's going to shift to her right side. But when she shifts to her right side, instead of coming out over the toe, she wants to think about pulling her hip back, internally rotating the non-using leg. And now she's going to dip that kettlebell inside towards her heel, and she's going to get 5 each side. So we don't want to see the right hip that she's using swing out. We actually want to see it retract and pull back so that her chin, knee, toe are in a straight line. So now we posteriorly shifted the hip, right, more narrow stance, and now we're just getting a little bit more triplanar movement here as she shifts into her frontal plane. Good. So what you would do is you could go through that sequence 2 or 3 times. So a stack, a posterior hip shift, and then one more drill we like to do is she's going to put the kettlebell down. This is a classic that we use here that you guys can use. This is called a sprinter lunge and reach. So she's going to make sure both feet are inside her frame. she's going to step back with her left leg. But watch. So notice what she did right away, because she's done this drill a lot, is she shifts her right hip back, right? So as her left arm is reaching across her body, so she's closing the left side of her torso, her right hip is shifting posteriorly. So I get internal rotation of my left side while I'm getting a little bit of external rotation of that right side. Again, right? Good gait and running mechanics is while one side is internally rotating, the other is externally rotating, and you just go, right? You're always transitioning. So you're going to get 5 each side here. So she steps back and rotates back to center. Her right heel is her reference point as she reaches across with that left arm. So you can see in the mind, right, shift that hip back, as you guys can see a little bit better on this side. She pulls across with this right arm as she shifts her hip back posteriorly. So you're going to get 5 each side. Those 4 exercises are very basic drills that you can do without wasting a lot of time, unless you feel sore, a little bit of tightness, or you have some tension where you can do your foam rolling, your lacrosse ball work prior to this. But you don't need to waste a lot of time rolling around on the ground when you have a bigger group, or if you want to make sure that you're positioning the body and putting it in the right places to be able to sprint. For the next section of our warm-up, this is more of our tissue prep. So this isn't truly high neural output. This is more about getting blood flow into the tissue and warming up the hips, knees, ankles, shoulders, and upper body a little bit. Remember, you're working in unison with the nervous system. So we start a little bit lower, a little bit medium, and then we kind of progress to get the nervous system and tissues ready for the forces at hand. So the first drill that we like to do is a basic bilateral or 2-leg ankle pop. So her hips, our hands are on her hips. One of the things that we teach her, she wants to unlock at the hip and the knee a little bit. Here's why. Like we talked about earlier, you want a place to go. So if she's already extended, now she just has a lot of shear force on her knees, on her hips. But instead, she's in a little bit more of an athletic position. So she's going to flex her toes towards the sky. She's just going to get 10 ankle pops, hands on her hips. Go ahead. So nice and easy, not all out. Good. She's going to shake it out a little bit. Now she's going to do the left leg. So we'll go the left leg for 10. Good. Same thing. Knee and hip is bent a little bit. Obviously, Shannon's been training here for a little bit, so she has some experience. But we're going to go 10 together, 10 right, and then 10 left. Good. Notice how the intensity is low and the frequency or the amplitude is a little bit higher. And so we're going to keep building in, developing more forces as we progress through the warm-up. And now this is obviously an instructional video, so we're just showing you step by step, but this would all flow throughout a series of a training session. Now, hands on her hips. Here's a drill that we like to do. Now she's going to progress in height from ankle pops to pogo jumps. So she's going to get 10 total jumps, but she's going to go from a low amplitude to a little bit higher to where she works up to a top height. Go ahead. So start slow, builds up a little bit each one, as she's springing up into the ground, right, or using the ground as a springboard, right, to get maximal height. So now we're going to do the same thing with the left leg. Go ahead. So a little bit smaller, wake up the nervous system, the peripheral nervous system. Make sure that we're ready to train. Good, a little bit more, a little bit more. Good. Now that she's warm, I'll show you an example of something that I would not do. So let's just say we did our ground-based series and then we just did our kettlebell work. I would not have Shannon come up to the line and just do single leg pogo jumps for height. So she wouldn't just walk up to the line, go ahead, just get 3 because you're warm, and just start going, right? Remember, the nervous system is not ready for that work yet, is not ready for those shear forces or collision even on the ground with the whole lower extremity. So you have to go again from low frequency, low amplitude, and build your way up a little bit as you get going. So now she's going to do her right leg. So we just did regular, left leg 10 jumps, right leg, and progress in height for 10 jumps. Did you do your right leg? Yeah. Cool. So once we get that, now we can build in a little bit. So now we're going to add some rhythm so we get a little bit of relaxation, co-contraction within the body. So she's going to start hands on her hips. This is called a rhythm squat. She's going to take 2 ankle pops, and then she's going to do a 50% jump, 2 ankle pops, 75% jump. She has 5 total jumps to work up to a top height. Ready, go. 1, 2, go. 1, 2, go. 1, 2, go. 1, 2, go. right? And she's working up to this top height here. Good. Notice how we haven't used the arms yet. Why? Right? The brain sends the signals to the arms first. And again, the body will follow the eyes and the legs will follow the arms. So here I'm trying to remove that concept and we're just trying to warm up the lower extremity before we add in a complete movement holistically. So what we're going to do now, she's going to do the exact same thing but single leg. So she's just going to go 1, 2 and jump off that single leg. Usually we might do these moving, but we're just going to do these in place here. 1, 2, a little bit, 1, 2, a little bit. She's going to do 5 of them. Good. Go ahead. 1, 2. Yep. And notice how she's bent, a little bit of flexion of the knee and hip. No arm drive. So a lot of that leaning and weight's going to be shifted on that single stance. Good. She'll shake it out a little bit. The next series that we're going to do is a little bit moving. So now sometimes we might do left leg progressives to 5, right leg to 10. She'll turn around and do the same thing. So low frequency to a little bit higher, right? Minimal ground contact time to trying to get off the ground high, so more ground contact time. The next series of drills is just some of our posture work. And now the reason we do a lot of this work is to just warm the nervous system up, but also prepare for some of our acceleration that we're going to show later. So she's just going to put her hands on her hips. We're just going to do a single march. So she's just going to march, right, in place. She's going to get 5 each side. Good. One of the keys that we talk about, right? The hip is your main power source. So you want to swing from the hip and attack down with that hip. Don't think knee, don't think toe. Her toes are flexed towards her face. Sometimes we can do this moving, sometimes we'll do them in place. So we would go through that 2 times, maybe 5 or 10 yards. The second drill we're going to do, now we're going to add a little bit of more intensity to it where she's attacking the ground vertically. So now we're going to do right leg in the air, and she's just going to do a single exchange. So I would say, switch, back to center. So she brings her right leg back up, switch, back to center. So she's going to get 5 on her own. So a quick transition between each limb. Once she does 5 with the right side, she'll come around, she's going to do 5 with the left. Switch, good. So it's a quick exchange. Like I said, sometimes we do these moving, where she'll be doing her right leg to 5 and then left leg to 10, but you're not going to use your arms, right? She's not going to use her arms. Now we would progress to a double exchange. So now, right leg is up. She's just going to go left, right in place. So now it's a full double exchange. Switch, left, right, switch, 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 and relax. So now it's a full exchange of each extremity. Now she's going to switch sides. She's going to go left leg. Left leg up, switch, switch, switch. And you can hear on the ground. You can keep going. You can keep going. So if you hear, right, I should be able to hear you on the ground. Striking the ground, right, spending a lot of time on the ground during these drills. Again, because we're just prepping the body for collision. It has nothing to do with actually improving her acceleration mechanics. It has everything to do with prepping her brain, right, for the sprinting and the forces that we're about to experience. So now we go through all of these sequences. Now we go back to the beginning, but I'm going to add in her arms. So now we're going to pull everything together. So this would go typically a little bit quicker because Shannon knows the drill, but if you're coaching, you got to make sure you know what you're coaching, what you're looking for. So we're going to start back to the beginning with her rhythm squats. So now she's going to go 1, 2, use her arms and swing from the shoulders. So she's going to get 5 in. 1, 2, good. So now you can see she's getting a little bit more lift off the ground. Swings from the shoulders, something that we've been working on a lot of. She'll shake it out, and now in place, she's just going to do her marches with her arms, 5 each. So now, using her arms, good. So now pulling everything together. She's going to shake it out, and now we're going to do our double exchanges. So right leg up, left arm up, toe flex towards the ceiling. Remember, she wants a little bit of knee flexion on her opposite leg. Switch, good. Switch. Good, so you can do single exchanges and then double exchanges. You're good. So now we'll give you an example of a double exchange. So now if her right leg is up, left arm is up, she's just going to switch. Good. So now we're piecing everything together. And just for the sake of this video, we're just doing it in place, but what we would be doing is we'd be doing it moving. So she gets a feel a little bit for what it feels like to move here. So that's an example of some posture in place drills that we use to prep before we sprint. Now for this last sequence of drills that we do, we're moving and the intensity is at its highest. So this is a basic A-skip progression. Again, for the sake of the video, we're just gonna stay right here in place so you guys can see everything. So she's just gonna start doing a regular A-skip with her arms. So she's just gonna march light, right in place. So this is the first progression. The second progression, she's gonna get going a little bit. Now she's developing some rhythm. And now we're gonna progress in height a little bit. So now she's really gonna push off the ground in that same rhythm. So again, we're starting with a lower frequency, lower amplitude, and then we're moving up as we progress here. So that's our 3-part A-skip series that we like to use. The last sequence that we might use here is just a horizontal power skip down and back, obviously because we're sprinting. So we try to get a little bit more horizontal trajectory, and then we would get right into our sprints.